breakdown, both in homelessness and in child safety as well, the domestic family violence and the traumas that young people have got, all add into the reasons why a young person may leave home in the negative space. Pardon me. There's another question on here in regards to how does homelessness affect a child's ability to engage and attend school, and the patterns in absenteeism, performance, behaviour challenges, etc. I don't want to throw lots of theories and things at you, but even one of the most simple theories going around Maslow's hierarchy of needs really explains, I suppose, what a human is looking for. And the most basic needs around shelter, food, water, nurturing, clothing, warmth, they're the most basic needs. The network's gone again. If you're not able to, as a human, meet them needs, then you're not able to rise that hierarchy that Maslow actually sets out, which the next one up would be things like education, employment, all the development parts of a human being. So when a young person isn't meeting them needs, then something will give. They can't fulfill their own development. So that's why crisis accommodation like ourselves do exist, to try and meet them fundamental needs of shelter, safety, warmth, food, clothing, everything that a crisis accommodation can help with. Once they've got that met in their life, then we can help support them with the education. Mm-hmm. One of the big things we find with young people as well, and one of the hardest things that they have to deal with, is not a lot of shelters and not a lot of services maybe in the area that they attend school. We find a lot of young people who come to our area, their schools may be down on the Gold Coast, which means it's 2 trains and a bus and an hour and 40 minutes just to get to school. So these can be a factor in regards to why absenteeism might be higher for somebody who's in emergency accommodation or in our IHR. We're very limited with what we can offer. We can't always offer a community where a young person lives as a place that they can stay. So unfortunately, something has to override it, and the whole safety and being fed, clothed, warmth actually outweighs getting to school and things like that. One of the other questions on here is, and I might throw this one over to Izzy, is what parts of current programmes, whether it's housing, jobs and education, work best for young people? And because Izzy does a lot in the house as a practitioner, she'll probably be able to tell you a lot more about the services that we try to engage with and where she feels there's more success in the types of services and what she feels works best for supporting our young people.
I actually don't have that question on my list, but I can speak on it. Lots of so in terms of services that we kind of link our young people to, we work a lot with community services in a lot of different aspects and ranges depending on what that young person's needs are. So we usually do case management with them, try and figure out what they need and try and match them with services that are, I guess, best fitted for them and what they're needing at that time. That can be anywhere from mental health services, Headspace, Kim's, whether that's community groups, trying to get them linked in with like youth programs, trying to connect with new people. What else have we done? We've done some there's community services out there to assist young people with their driving, getting their hours up, which is a big thing for especially the young people that we support around that 16 to 18-year-olds. getting their license is a big life skill, so it's good having those community services out there that we're able to kind of reach out to assist with that. What was the second part of that question? Sorry, Gareth, it's not on my...
So I think you've answered most of it, just the types of programs that we work with, but I'm just asked, what do you think work best for the young people? What programs do you think are actually a need for every young person? Because every young person is different. Some do come in with a part-time job.
Yeah.
But what do you think is actually the most important type of external provider that we can link in with for young people to help move them forward?
Personally, from my experience working with young people, I definitely think trying to link them up with the mental health services. A lot of our young people have gone through trauma backgrounds, whether that's exactly what we've spoken about before, family breakdown, domestic and family violence, all of that. With that being said, I do think trying to support them with their mental health, whether that's community groups, accessing their community, or whether that's more formal mental health, which would be like those Headspace and those psychologies. Again, it looks different for each young person. Oh, I disconnected. I hope I answered that okay. Please feel free to jump in if you have any other questions or anything you want to clarify. Oh, yeah.
Hi, I want to ask some questions about the current program. So is there any challenges about the funding of the programs you are facing?
Ooh. Gareth might be able to speak about the funding aspect. I'm just, he with more of the funding aspect of our program.
So currently, housing, any projects through housing are probably some of the least funded types of programs compared to some programs that are out there and some lines of services that the government have. Housing is a little less funded. In similar services such as child safety, and they may have residential services for 4 to 5 complex young people who are in care that are funded up to $2.5 million services to support these young people. Now, we would run a similar service in our complex service where we're supporting young people who are suffering trauma, mental health issues, yet because we're not funded like child safety, we've got a lot less funding because we're funded through the housing department or the Department of Housing. So every time a new political party come in place, there's always some nervous people around what that political party want to do when it comes to housing. Sorry, my internet keeps dropping out. I'll go back to what I was saying. If there's a new political party, which we've recently had here in Queensland, we had the change of government last year, there usually is a shake-up in what they want to do with their departments and funding. So people get a little bit nervous when it comes to housing time and youth justice and things like that, where the government want to put their money. So there's always a bit of time where people tighten their belts, where funding becomes a little bit tighter during political times and elections are on. Until we know what the government are wanting to do with the money that's already in the system, services will work to the contract, but try and keep things a little bit tighter. At this moment in time, governments are still having conversations around our types of services and what they're going to look like in the future. We have got some good pots of funding, and in the last 2 years we've had an uplift of money, which has been able to give us the opportunity to run more complex models. So the money is there. It's just about advocating for the need to support young people with, homelessness issues. And there is a lot of different services out there that do that advocacy. So the Anglicare are a part of a few of them services where we will talk closely with the Queensland Government and tell them about the issues. So we will report regularly about the types of young people that are coming through the doors. We report regularly on statistics around young people and getting them suitable accommodation. We will report regularly on the amount of referrals that we're actually getting through the door, because we can't obviously help every referral. And all this data is sent to the Queensland Government to show what actually is currently happening in Queensland around youth homelessness and homelessness. So as well as being a service that provides these services, we're also a data collection point that the government can use when they are drawing up their budgets in regards to what they want to do when it comes to homelessness services. So funding does have its up and downs. It does have its challenges, especially when political parties change within the government. However, it is recognised that youth homelessness is quite high on the agenda and will be for some time, especially because we've got this shortage of housing. So when you're listening to politics and things on the news and on TV, there is always a lot of direction around the housing crisis, and youth homelessness is part of that. So it is very challenging, especially with the amount of referrals that we do receive on a daily basis. There's a question on here, which is a good question, about how do we incorporate voices and lived experiences of homeless children and their families into the service design and advocacy work. So part of what we do, we are a part of the QHIP, which is Queensland Housing Initiative Programme, which is one of the programmes that are advocacy for lobbying the Department of Housing around homelessness and youth homelessness. Mm-hmm. The reports that we create are always established through them as well. So there's a number of services from ourselves here in Beenleigh and Southern Queensland. There's services across Queensland as well that are part of that group. And we prepare them reports, as I was just talking about, for the government. Mm-hmm. Part of them reports is we do take into consideration what the young people are saying. So here at Anglicare, when we do case planning, we will have feedback every 6 weeks. So we ask our young people, when it comes to case planning time, can you tell us your feedback on how you feel the last 6 weeks have gone? Sometimes it's positive, sometimes it may be negative. Both ways we try and create actions to help support the services. They may have certain suggestions. When I saw this question, I thought it was really thought of around the questions that you want to ask, because when we talk about young people in this sector who may have suffered trauma, who find it very difficult around taking control of their life, giving them the options to be part of their own case planning and part of their own future is a very trauma-informed way of supporting young people. So in all the case plans we do, in all the feedback that we ask for with the questionnaires, the young people are always involved. They are the experts in their own lives, and we want them to voice what they feel is their best pathway. It's a really good tool for helping support young people who've suffered trauma.
just to add to that as well, we also have feedback and suggestion boxes in the house for the people to kind of write down anything that they don't really want to discuss with us face to face, and as well as every week we sit down as a group with all the young people in the house and the staff and do what we call a house meeting, where we have that opportunity to hear their voices and hear some of their experiences for us to change our practice.
Let me have a look to see if there's anything else that would be positive. So there's a question on here about how can partnerships with universities help improve transition from care to independence. I think when it comes to partnerships with universities, there's a number of thoughts on this. There's that practical thought around the type of work that we do and giving people that opportunity to understand the work. So in Anglicare, we have student placement provider who sits in our head office, and if people are looking for student placements, they support finding a placement specifically to help them with their studies. So if it's human services they may be studying, or social services, then we have a person here who helps support and find placements for people. So that helps them understand services as well as the university in regards to collaborating with each other to raise development standards for young people, and make an opportunity to see a working environment. So that's probably the lowest level in regards to the collaboration with universities. The next step would be from that would be the creation of, I suppose, theories and supports that students have done in the past, where they may have created, exercises or toolkits that can help in certain situations. A couple of years ago, I was working in out-of-home care, in fostering and kinship care. I was an education consultant, and I worked closely with Griffith University and the education department in the southeast of Queensland, and they came up with a tool of development to help support young people transitioning from kindy into prep, with the focus being on vulnerable young people. This toolkit had never been seen before. Schools obviously have planners and things like that in regards to supporting young people, but this toolkit was there to support from an early stage, a year out of actually moving across. So if a young person was identified that they needed this support, then education providers at the school that the young people were going to, there would have been the kindy that would be involved, there would be the education department as well, and any other services. So something like that, and then toolboxes were created out of somebody's learning at university. So they undertook work experience at a local services, and from there developed an idea that is actually now mainstream in our education department. So that's probably the important part of why services, non-for-profits like ourselves, continue to collaborate with universities. We can link ideas, we can share ideas, best practices, always good, especially if you can take some of the practices you may see, or even bring in practices you may have seen somewhere else. So it strengthens the type of work that we're trying to do. Answered that one.
Is there any actions could be taken to prevent such issues like youth homelessness?
When it comes to obviously homelessness and a lot of the common reasons why young people become homeless. A lot.
Is it the connection, the internet?
Should be started early. I do apologise. As I was saying, I do apologise. When we look at the reasons why young people become homeless, there is definitely a call for supporting families, early intervention, supporting families, especially around family breakdown, family dynamic, domestic and family violence. Domestic and family violence is a big agenda on a lot of government services policy. A lot of non-for-profit organisations now have their own domestic family violence policies and procedures specifically for any incidents that may occur that have domestic and family violence. Staff who work in this field and in this area will have specific domestic and family violence training to know how to respond and deal with it. In these services, however, obviously we're seeing young people 16, 17, 18 coming through into homelessness. So when it comes to reducing that and preventing that, then the key is early identification, early prevention. Now, there is a question on here around stigma and things like that, and identifying that and actually doing something about that probably goes hand in hand with the stigma that people are quite proud and feel that they may not need help, or people don't want help from outside sources. There is a lot of services out there to support young people and families, especially families who may have young children who may be struggling in regards to, domestic family violence issues, or even if they don't see that within themselves, there are services out there that can support families in raising children. Again, when I go back to the most simplest of theories around Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if a family or parents aren't meeting the needs of these young people, and they're not even meeting their own needs, they're not able to take care of the young people. So there's elements of neglect as well, which will form different types of trauma. There is definitely a circle and a cycle of this within families and within areas across Queensland. There are definitely areas where it is more prevalent in the low social economic areas. But in my personal opinion, I don't have all the statistics. I'm not a statistician or anything. Early intervention is definitely key. And also, not just early intervention, but availability for people. As I said before, when it comes to accommodation and crisis housing, young people might have to move 30, 40k to find a shelter. And it's the same with services. Services aren't always readily available on your doorstep, and people have to travel, and that can be difficult for young families to find supports. It's, I suppose, at this moment in time, it's people going out finding the supports, and there's not many people knocking on your door to say, hey, this is what we do. So they're just my opinions. I think early intervention is key to try and support all them issues around domestic family violence, trauma, relationships within families, building positive, strong relationships in families. And that's done from a very early age. I'm not saying it can't be done when young people are older, but it's a lot harder to change somebody and support somebody's behavioural changes when they're older than when they are younger. So for me, it is about early intervention and helping support and prepare families for their lives with their young children to create the best lives that they possibly can. And that happens it should be in schools as well. Schools should be doing the same. They should be preparing young people more for, I believe, for setting themselves up to be financially dependent, learning budgeting more instead of that being just thrust onto parents. Schools should do more budgeting and then things. So, but that's just my opinion. I'm not quoting anybody there from any sort of theorists or anything like that. But it's definitely early intervention, I think, is key to supporting reduction of homelessness, especially through domestic and family violence and family breakdown.
You mentioned that schools, so that if high school teachers, for example, like, could they provide the early identification, and would it involve some kind of ethical issues, maybe, if high school teachers want to do the early identification?
So I do know that there are some tools that are about when it comes to identifying young people who they may feel are vulnerable for many different issues. So if we do take domestic family violence, for example, there are domestic family violence framework and the level 1 tools that are out there for every agency to use if they need to. However, educators and teachers should have an element of training around recognising if young people's behaviours change, if their moods are changing. And schools do have that system they have guidance officers and chaplains that if a teacher feels that they need support, they should be reporting these to these services within the school. But there is definitely systems in place to identify if a young person is struggling. And schools do have and are mandatory reporters when it comes to schools know the systems and are mandatory reporters for reporting anything that they feel that a young person might be getting harmed or are in or under harm. So schools have to do that. So there is an element of processes that are in place to identify if they feel that somebody's vulnerable, and that's what they should be doing. And that could be, an early indicator of if these are being reported through to child safety, these concerns, then child safety should be investigating and then advising and guiding for the family supports. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Has anybody else got any questions? Yep, go on, Rohan.
Hi, Gareth and Izzy. It was very nice listening to all the insights that you have shared. Just one thing that I would like to know from you is if there is one thing that you can change, like let's say tomorrow, to avoid child homelessness, what it would be and why do you think so it is important?
That's a good question.
This is a really good question. I had a bit of a think about this one, and there's lots of different things that I wish you had the magic wand to kind of fix. But honestly, exactly what Gareth said. Like, I definitely think there needs to be some more early intervention done within the family system at a younger age, whether that's parenting, further parenting support, or just that early intervention at a young age. Because I think having that family support can really make a difference when it comes to the domestic family violence, the parental mental health, the family breakdowns. Like, having that support in a family system from the get-go, I think can really do wonders for, really do wonders for the homelessness space. Not seeing so many young people and those, young teens coming through for referrals.
I would definitely agree. It would be definitely that in regards to the early intervention. if we've got the money, if we can find the money, as the government can find the money, I would love that in 10 to 15 years' time, somebody says to me, sorry, dropping out again.
Oh, sorry guys, his internet's not doing very well.
Sorry again. I don't know where I went to or where you heard, but yeah, I was just agreeing with Izzy that if there was money available and we had the money, it would be early intervention for me. And if someone could turn around to me in 15 years' time with early intervention firmly in its place, doing its job, and saying to me, sorry, we no longer need you because early intervention's doing its job, then I'll happily be made redundant because things are working. So, yeah, early intervention for me, if there's endless amounts of money, would be the key to supporting the reduction of homelessness.
Thank you so much. That answers my question. Thank you so much.
No worries. Has anybody got any other questions before we leave you guys to it? Awesome. If anybody does have any questions in the meantime, if you wanted to email them through to I just forget the name.
Is it Leanne?
Yes, that's the one. Yeah. You're more than welcome to, or to your coordinator who's set these up. Happy to answer anything further if you need anything, any clarification or anything like that. So happy to do that. It might just take a couple of days to respond, but if anybody needs that support, happy to do that. Thank you so much for linking in. I appreciate you all joining this afternoon, and have a great Friday, and and good luck with your studies. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.